And good afternoon, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Defeo, as always. Thank you for joining me on this fine and a bit cooler than last week's Saturday afternoon. And before I get started, as always, I want to encourage you to check out our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. And, of course, all of our audio podcasts on any audio platform that you choose. And, of course, check out Behind the Steel Curtain, where we bring you 10 articles a day, commentary, news breakdown. News, commentary, and film breakdown. So please check that all out. I want to keep that all short and sweet today because there's a lot I wanted to cover. And thank you to everybody in the live chat for joining me. Nathaniel Zarate, Steelers Pittsburgh. And I hope that many more will join me before the show is over. So before I get started talking about the Steelers and everything going on with them, their awesome 5-0 start, I'm going to talk about an ex-Steeler, Antonio Brown. As you know, he was suspended for the first half of the 2020 season, and there was speculation when this suspension was over as to where he was going to land. Seattle was a contender for the longest time. Baltimore, both Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson lobbied for him publicly. But the last place I thought he would land was Tampa Bay because, you know, back before the start of the season, the Buccaneers head coach, the ex-offensive coordinator of the Steelers, Bruce Arians, said, we don't really have any use for him, or however he said it. He was pretty emphatic about them not acquiring Antonio Brown, despite the fact that Tom Brady spent the entire offseason lobbying for him to come to Tampa after Brady signed with the Buccaneers. But after Arians shut that down, and if you go back to 2019, when Arians was a victim of Antonio Brown's season-long bridge-burning tour, I mean, he pretty much burned every bridge imaginable in 2019 after he left Pittsburgh. It didn't seem like Tampa was the destination. But on Friday, it was announced that Brown, once his suspension is lifted in week 9, will be a Buccaneer. I mean, he's going to sign. I think he's expected to sign early next week, and then he will be a Buccaneer starting week 9. And the one wild card in all that is Tom Brady. That's probably why Brown wound up in Tampa, because I've said many times that the franchise quarterback, the highly respected and highly accomplished franchise quarterback on any team, is the most powerful member of that organization besides the owner. He's more powerful than the head coach. He's more powerful than any other teammate. What the franchise quarterback wants, he usually gets. So they only spent about a week or so together in New England last year, but I guess that was enough of an impression on Tom Brady that he kept insisting on AB coming to Tampa. And I can't really blame him, despite all of his success. I mean, he's arguably the greatest quarterback ever, certainly the most accomplished in terms of championships. Brady hasn't had many toys to play with on the caliber of Antonio Brown. I mean, he's had a lot of nice little slot receivers, no-name receivers, and of course he's had Gronk, Randy Moss for a couple of years there, but not very many players the caliber of an Antonio Brown. So I can certainly see why he would want that. And if the Buccaneers, if Brown is the player he was even in 2018, I mean, Buccaneers are getting the modern day Jerry Rice. There's no questioning his talent. If it's still, unless he's lost his fastball, the Buccaneers have gotten themselves quite the weapon, and to go along with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I mentioned Gronk, who I think maybe has kind of lost it, but still you have to account for him. Leonard Fournette. I think this is a collection of offensive talent that few people saw playing together as recently as the start of the year. I don't think anybody expected Leonard Fournette to wind up in Tampa. Gronk, of course, Brady last spring. So it's quite a development. I mean, this is looking more and more like the dream team that Vince Young thought the Eagles would be about 10 years ago. So Tampa Bay's pretty darn good overall. They're 4-2. They're in first place in the NFC South. So this could be quite the wild card, quite the X factor for them moving forward. And as a Steelers fan, and I'm sure you might agree, I'm glad it wasn't Baltimore, and I'm glad it wasn't another contender in the AFC. Or any team that the Steelers are going to play this year. If it's Tampa, it's Tampa. If it winds up Pittsburgh against Tampa in the Super Bowl, I think we'd all sign up for that. Antonio Brown or no Antonio Brown, it would be quite the story. So that's just something I wanted to touch on pretty quickly and before moving on. But I think it's a pretty interesting development. So we'll see what happens there with AB if he has his life together. I mean, he's been pretty quiet this off season. He was quiet all throughout the off season and so far during the regular season. So we talk a lot about his mental faculties, but he's aware enough to know that he has to comport himself in a certain way in order to get back into the NFL, to get back into the good graces of the likes of Roger Goodell and all the owners and coaches out there. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's a pretty interesting place for him to wind up. So, but that's that. And now I want to talk a little bit briefly about the Steelers and the Browns last Sunday. The Steelers won 38-7. And what a glorious day that was. As far as teams to beat that way so thoroughly, I think the Browns are right up at the top of the list for me because, as I said on Monday with Brian on The Hangover, for whatever reason, people they desperately want Cleveland to be a contender. And the Browns have been pretty vocal about wanting respect and guys like Baker Mayfield and OBJ and Jarvis Landry and Myles Garrett, all those guys, we want our respect. But it seems to me like they're more worried about getting respect and earning respect and going out there and getting it by winning. You don't get respect by people proclaiming your excellence on the internet or by proclaiming yourself excellent. You gain respect by beating the teams that will earn you that respect. And they've played two of those teams so far this year, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And both of those teams wiped the mat with them, wiped the floor with them. So until they can prove that they can beat true contenders, then the Browns are never going to have anybody's respect. They might have a lot of fans because of Hard Knocks. I have an old friend who just a few years ago was a big-time Steeler fan. She was a Steeler fan for years. And now all of a sudden she's cheering for the Browns, even last week. I mean, she wanted the Browns to win that game. And it's like, what happened? She said, I have a soft spot for them after watching them on Hard Knocks. So they do have a lot of fans out there because of that show and because they've been so downtrodden for a number of years. But, they're never really going to be they're never really going to be on anybody's radar as far as a contender until they go out there and get the job done on the field. So it was a nice win, and it was I was impressed with how the Steelers dominated physically, both on offense and defense. They controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Really, I mean, Myles Garrett, who's arguably having a better season than T.J. Watt, he was contained by Okorafor and whoever else he went up against. I mean, kudos to the right side of that offensive line, the young side of the offensive line. Between Shooks and Kevin Dotson, the 4th round pick, they had 4 starts between them coming into the year, and you haven't heard a peep of negative feedback or negative talk from about either one of those guys so far this year. I mean, it's just been excellent, and they kept Garrett in check, and the Steelers offense kept the Browns running game in check, like I kind of thought they would. I didn't think they would do as well as they did. I mean, they were really, really dominant, and they were laying the wood all afternoon. So it was fun to watch, and how about this offense? I mean, the defense, we know what the defense can do. It's going to be a challenge for them moving forward without Devin Bush. I'll get into that more a little bit later, but oh, by the way, I see some more people joining the live chat. There's Jerry Cherryband, Joe McCamey, Ezra, Dave Shipley, Z Smooth. What a name! I think that's going to be my dating profile, my new dating profile name. T Money, my friend Terry, awesome. So welcome to everybody. Odessa Hall, Malk Sinatra, welcome to everybody for. Thank you to everybody for joining me. So anyway, where was I? Steelers offense. The defense, again, I'm going to get more into Devin Bush in a bit, but how about the offense and how it's an explosive offense, but it doesn't feel like it's an explosive offense because they're just so efficient. They just move, with moving the ball up and down the field and scoring points. And they haven't scored less than 26 points yet this year. They're averaging 31.2 points a game. And it's almost like, dare I say, the Patriots offense in their heyday of a few years ago, where they just, at the end of the day, you looked up you were down 36-14, but it just didn't feel like they were, like you were getting bludgeoned to death. It was just like death by 1,000 cuts, with Brady just finding the underneath man the whole game, it seemed like. So that's what it feels like right now. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was 14-22 for 162 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was almost a pedestrian. He just seemed like he was barely a participant, but I think it's just his presence that makes that whole offense go. I mean, I know it's a cliche to say, and no kidding, Tony. Ben Roethlisberger makes it all go, but that's kind of what my point was all last season, all during the off season. In the article I wrote the other day, it's like, it's just his, people were talking about, what was going on with the game plan last year. Randy Fichtner, what was he thinking? Why didn't he have a better plan? He just didn't have a good quarterback. I mean, I think it's becoming more and more clear that Mason Rudolph might not be the guy that we were hoping he would be. Certainly Duck Hodges and Josh Dobbs, all those players, they just, if you look at history, when guys like Ben go down, the offense usually struggles. So, I mean, I'm not an X's and O's guy, but I know enough to know that you take that guy out of the offense, it's going to struggle. You put him back in there, regardless of whatever wrinkles you want to discuss and whatever weapons he may have, he's going to make that offense better. So it's and I like the fact that, speaking of the offense and speaking of those new wrinkles, it seems like it's all coming together for Ben right now, for Ben Roethlisberger. It's, he's got Fichtner, who he's worked with forever. Now they have Matt Canada in there, and he's added his influence to the offense. And it seems like he's thinking the game better now than he has during his entire career. Maybe part of that was being away from football for a year. Maybe he watched the game unfold from the sidelines for most of the last year, and maybe he gained some new insight just by that. Maybe he gained a coach's insight by watching other people perform his craft. So again, it's he has weapons galore. He has JuJu, he has Chase Claypool now, Deontay Johnson, two great tight ends. James Conner's playing better than ever. He's got all these weapons. He's got a really good offensive line, and he seems to really know the offense like the back of his hand, which is a testament to him and the fact that he, obviously he's a 17-year vet. He better know the offense really well. So it's it almost feels like, I mean, I hate to say this, but it almost feels like this offense is impossible. It's going to be impossible to stop for maybe more than a game here and there throughout the year. It's just, I don't see this offense failing to score less than 21 points, again, knock on wood, in the vast majority of its games in 2020. So it's going to be interesting to see how much better the offense gets as the season goes along, and how many more of those wrinkles are thrown in with Canada and Ike Hilliard and whoever else is involved with forming that game plan with Randy Fichtner. I mean, because we talk about how there was no training camp and you couldn't have OTAs, and you could kind of see, even though the offense was producing early on, they struggled a bit, on third downs and in the red zone. And now it's like, what are they, 6 of their last 7 or something like that, 7 of 8, and the last 8 trips inside the red zone. I mean, they're really playing at a high level. And I think obviously you have to also you have to acknowledge the fact that they had 4 straight home games. I think that helped the offense. I mean, most offenses function much better at home than they do on the road. So that played a part in it too, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this offense goes over the last 11 games, because I think it could be maybe the best unit in the NFL. Maybe even better than the Chiefs when all is said and done. And I know the Chiefs are a pretty high bar to clear, but so that's that. And I want to get in a bit to Devin Bush and how that's going to be a pretty big loss for him. I don't have to tell you that. I mean, it's when I saw him go out. Was it late in the first half last week? Yeah, late in the first half. I saw him limp off the field. I thought, okay. I was hoping. I knew it just seemed like it wasn't going to be a sprain, but I was hoping for, if it was a tear, I was hoping for a meniscus tear, because I have like 2 or 3 of them from playing volleyball, and I didn't even have to have surgery on them. So, if you remember 2016, Ben Roethlisberger suffered a meniscus tear, and I think he missed 2 games or a game and a half, maybe, because I think there was a bye in there somewhere, so that helped. But he didn't miss much time, and he came back, and they went all the way to the AFC Championship game when all was said and done. So I was hoping for that, but by the end of the game, when reading Twitter and guys like Adam Schefter, as much as people might not like him, and he's usually pretty accurate. When I saw that tweet from him that it was a torn ACL, I was like, gosh, because Devin Bush. I mean, there's a reason why the Steelers our defense kind of struggled after Ryan Shazier went down, because the defense needs a guy in the middle of the field with that kind of athleticism. And Shazier, did a lot of heavy lifting for them 2014 through the time he got injured, unfortunately, in 2017. I mean, he was their defense. Now, he's probably a better player than Devin Bush, or he was a better player than Devin Bush, but still, I mean, Devin Bush was that prototype athletic inside linebacker that the defense was missing for 2 years. So I don't think he ever came off the field on defense. I think he played in every snap up until the time he got hurt so far this year. I think he was in on all 100% of the snaps. I have to go back and check that, but I'm pretty sure he played. He was in on every play. I mean, he was the quarterback, so to speak. He called the signals. I mean, it's a veteran defense, so I think that's not going to be an issue for them. But just his physical presence and when it meant. And yes, he wasn't making a lot of splash plays through the first 5 games, 4.5 games, unfortunately. But he had a lot of responsibilities that the Steelers are now going to have to rely on several different players to make up for. Coverage. I mean, when you're talking about using 3 or 4 or 5 players to make up for the loss of one player, that should tell you the vital role that he played in that defense. And I mean, I'm excited to see what Robert Spillane can do. He looked good in one half of football. I mean, he was a tackling machine. He had a really maybe the hit of the game on Kareem Hunt on a screen pass. I think it was late in the game or late in the third quarter, I believe. So, it's exciting, but I was excited about Mason Rudolph after he played a half against the Seahawks, and we saw how that happened, how that unfolded for him over the years. So let's not pretend that there's a that Devin Bush and Robert Spillane are even in the same ballpark as far as the kind of athlete and the kind of pedigree that they have. I mean, I think it's going to be tough for him to do the kind of things that Devin Bush did, and that's why you have to hope that they have a plan with him and Ulysses Gilbert III. He hasn't really played this year, mainly because I guess from what I hear, he wasn't getting the job done on special teams, but hopefully he's a great athlete. I mean, 6th-round pick, again, that's a huge difference between a 6th-round pick and a top 10 pick. So, they've brought in all these hybrid safeties, guys like Edmonds, Marcus Allen, Mika Fitzpatrick's capable of doing a lot of freelancing. So it's gonna take a village to keep to replace Bush. But unlike 2017 when Shazier went down, this is a much better defense. And I mean, they have playmakers everywhere. They have speed all over the place. Their front seven with getting after the quarterback is just I think it's unmatched in the NFL. So, it's not gonna be a death blow for them. It's not gonna be the reason why they don't win the Super Bowl, I don't think, but it's definitely going to be a weakness that can be exploited. So it'll be interesting to see how they address that moving forward and how Spillane plays. I mean, I don't look for them to make any trades right away. If they can get through the Tennessee game and Spillane has a good showing and maybe they use some other players to pick up Devin Bush's old responsibilities. If they feel good about that, then maybe to just keep moving forward with that. If it's a disaster, then I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and try to swing a trade for somebody. You hear the name Avery Williamson. I'm not sure. Maybe he's already been traded. I don't know, but we'll have to see what happens with that. And with that topic, that brings to close the first half of Steelers Brunch with Tony. But if you're watching on YouTube, please stay with me. And if you're listening on one of our many podcasting platforms that you can find us, please download part 2 of this episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. And I'm back. And welcome to part 2 of this episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. I wanted to welcome more people into the live chat. Ron Chess, Kathy Forehead, Donald Nolan, all my peeps. Boing boom. Nice to see everybody in the live chat. And I'm going to address a few more things before I take some questions on this part of the show. And the next thing I wanted to get into was my article about JuJu Smith-Schuster and his selflessness. And I think a lot of people took that the wrong way. I think a lot of people they read the headline and they thought, oh, he thinks that we, meaning the fans, want JuJu to be a diva. That's not what I was trying to get at. What I was trying to say is if you watch how people respond online to things, it's almost like they want to be angry about something. Like I always get these whenever I write a controversial article about something, people always say, "Why do we have to read this kind of stuff? Why don't you focus on the good things?" And then you write a positive article and it gets no traction. But you write a negative article and people are all over it. No matter what the topic is, it's a topic. It could be a topic that they claim they don't want to talk about. So my point with JuJu is he's given no indication up to now. I mean, the story through the first 5 games, he's even though he's basically their leading receiver, Chase Claypool's been getting all the attention because he's been so productive. He has 335 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, he's a major candidate for rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, whatever. I don't know if they divide that up, but he's definitely a candidate for that award. And so people are just waiting for Smith-Schuster to turn into this diva like Antonio Brown was, and like a lot of receivers have that kind of behavior over the years. And like my thought was, why are you waiting for that? He's given no indication so far during his career that he's anything but a team guy. And yeah, he might. I know he annoys people a lot with his social media stuff. That was a fun thing in 2017. Now it's like, oh my God, this is why this guy doesn't get ahead. It's kind of, a lot of people still love that, but a lot of people have gotten off of that bandwagon and now use that as a way to criticize him. So, but he's always been a team player, and I think a wide receiver, any wide receiver, diva or no diva, is in a no-win situation, because if he doesn't produce, and people are like, well, why aren't you producing? You want all this money, you want this big contract, but you're not producing. I don't, you don't deserve that kind of money. But if he gets mad that he's not a major focal point of the offense, and people say he's being selfish, But my question is, why wouldn't any receiver want to be productive? Like, that's what you do. That's your number one job is to produce. And if you're not producing, if they're not, like, I used to play flag football and I sucked, but I still wanted to get the ball all the time. And if I wasn't a focal point of my quarterback, if he wasn't looking at me, I'm like running downfield with my I might as well like pull out a flare to get his attention, I would get mad, so why wouldn't a player of JuJu's caliber not want the ball, and if he's getting double teamed and triple teamed and opening things up for other receivers, great. I mean, that's great, but I'm assuming he's at least internally, he's frustrated by not getting the ball, and he should be frustrated by that because that's what receivers do. They catch the ball, and if they're not doing that, I mean, like I laugh like when I think back to like the 90s. I'm watching a lot of these games now because of the retro show, and players like Mark Bruner, who was the number 1 pick tight end, and Charles Johnson, who was the number 1 pick as a receiver. I forgot all about this. I had to refresh my memory, but those guys, they came in and Cowher used them as like offensive lineman practically. He was so into running the football. They had Jerome Bettis and that kind of thing. And there were years when Mark Bruner was basically a sixth offensive lineman, and Charles Johnson, like I remember watching a sports segment where they did nothing but highlight his blocking. And I'm sure they didn't come into the NFL thinking, ooh, I want to be a blocker. They probably wanted to be Pro Bowl receiver, Pro Bowl tight end and a Pro Bowl receiver. So, I don't think we should fault a receiver for being frustrated with not getting the ball. I've heard Magic Johnson say this. I've heard Terry Bradshaw say this. Any athlete that says he doesn't care about his stats is lying. They all want to produce. They all want to have stats. Yeah, they want to win, but they don't want to just like be bystanders. They don't just want to be just on the outside looking in where everybody else is producing, and they're just one of the guys. I mean, everybody wants to feel like they're contributing. It's like we want them to circle it back. We want them to be team players. But we also want to criticize them when they don't produce. So that's all I meant by that article is we shouldn't sit around waiting for JuJu to turn into a diva. If he does, okay, he does. But up to now, we haven't seen any indication that he's that kind of guy. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. And now I want to talk a little bit about the Titans, and then I'll take some questions. And what a game this is shaping up to be. 5-0 versus 5-0. First time the Steelers are 5-0 since 1978. I didn't even care about football back then. I used to see the United Way commercials where they would show highlights of Super Bowl 10, I think, between the Steelers and the Cowboys. And I was so into Star Wars, because Star Wars was big in those days, of course. And I was 5, 6, 7 years old, 5 or 6 years old, whatever I was. And I was conditioned to believe that anybody wearing white was the good guy, and anybody dressed in black, because of Darth Vader, was the bad guy. So I used to root for the Cowboys when I would see highlights. That's how little I cared about the Steelers back then, or football in general. So that's a long time. But anyway, before I get to that, it's important that I bring up this $5 super chat question from Dave Shipley, and thank you for the donation, Dave. And here's what he has to say. Do what you do. You're a great writer and awesome host. Lane on the QB with Nelson Slottigan. Yep, that's back to Devin Bush. That's one of the many ways, because Mike Hilton is not playing on Sunday. I mean, he's a valuable member of that defense, and he'll be out. And he's a great at the line of scrimmage. He's obviously a great blitzer, and he's great in run support. So, in addition to Devin Bush, they're going to be missing Mike Hilton, who has a shoulder injury. So that's going to be interesting to see how the defense responds. But back to the Steelers and Titans. I have no doubt that the Steelers are going to score points. I really do think they're going to put up a lot of points, because the Titans defense really isn't that great. They only have 6 or 7 sacks all year. They don't really put much pressure on the quarterback. They give up like 26 points a game, 28 points a game, something like that. So I think you could score on them, and they have Malcolm Butler, but they don't have really many playmakers on that defense. So I think you can exploit them on the ground and through the air, but they do take the football away a lot. So ball control is going to be key. As far as stopping their offense, yikes. I mean, Derrick Henry, the two tight ends, A.J. Brown, the receiver, and I think Tannehill's a really good quarterback. I mean, he has 13 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, and they've only turned the ball over 3 times through 5 games. So it's going to be a tough game. I think obviously the key, and here's another comment from me, but the key is to stop Derrick Henry, which I'm confident that they can. I don't think he's going to get 200 yards like he did last week against the who they play, the Texans. But I think he's gonna have a pretty decent day. But will it be enough to beat the Steelers? I don't know. I kind of have a feeling the Titans are going to win this game, but nothing would shock me. I mean, I've been saying all week that I think Pittsburgh's going to lose, but I mean, the Steelers throughout history, both with Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin, have won these kind of games. So it wouldn't shock me if they won. No outcome is going to shock me either way. So I just think it's an exciting matchup that we get. That few fans this year are going to get fans of any team are going to get the experience. 2 undefeated football teams in October going at it. So it's not going to be the end of the world if they lose. But, I wouldn't declare them Super Bowl champions either if they won. But, it's just my advice is just to enjoy it because these are rare, awesome matchups. So, I mean, back in 2005 or 4, I watched the Steelers beat up on the Patriots and the Eagles in back-to-back weeks. They were both undefeated. They came to town in back-to-back weeks with undefeated records, and Pittsburgh just beat them up. But those were the 2 teams that played each other in the Super Bowl. So, it's only one game. It's not a playoff game, but it is an exciting matchup to have at the end of October. So I'm really looking forward to it. So with that, I will end the show about the final 10 minutes taking some questions. And here's a comment from Dave Shipley. 42-17. Is that for the Steelers? Wow, that would be quite the development. I'm sure we would all sign up for that. Here's a comment from Ezra. Sam Darnold is back up in 2021. I know there's been a recent USC quarterback curse, but Sam Darnold can ball. Yeah. Well, the Jets are in contention for the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, being that they are winless so far. So they're the front runner. And even though they drafted Darnold pretty highly in 2018, or pretty high in 2018, things haven't quite worked out. But I remember when Sam Darnold was kind of like the Trevor Lawrence of college football, and everybody wanted his services. So I think it's. I'm not sure if I'm the Jets. I realize that Trevor Lawrence is an exceptional talent, but if I'm the Jets, you invested high in a quarterback. I think you owe it to him to surround him with talent, because I think bringing Trevor Lawrence into that mess and expecting him to be any much better than Sam Darnold, I think you're only fooling yourselves. But I mean, if the Steelers can get their hands on Sam Darnold somehow, hey. You're looking for Ben's heir apparent. He's going to retire at some point. You might as well just take as many flyers on players as you can. I mean, Mason Rudolph, they drafted him in the 3rd round, hoping that he would possibly be that guy. And who knows, maybe he'll still be that guy. They brought back Josh Dobbs. They had a half a year with Devlin Hodges in 2019. So who knows? There's been talk about them training for Dwayne Haskins at some point, which I don't. I mean, again. I don't, people are worried about the heir apparent to Ben. And if they get Sam Darnold in here, great. If they get Dwayne Haskins in here, great. But my opinion has always been they're going to find Ben's heir apparent when Ben retires, and not on one moment. If they stumble upon him before that, great. But I don't think they're actively really going to make sacrifice a whole lot to find that guy now. If they can get Sam Darnold for a song, if they can get Dwayne Haskins for a song, great. But other than the proverbial flyer, I don't see them making a concerted effort to get Ben's heir apparent until he's gone. I joked last week that people have been wanting Steelers to groom a successor to Ben for like 10 years. I mean, that guy would be in his 30s now and probably pretty darn angry if he was still on the bench behind Ben. So anyway, let's see what else we have here. Here's a comment from Yul Skinner. There we go. Sorry about that. The Dolphins will regret that decision to make Tua their starter. I mean, yeah, they're contending, but is Ryan? How far are they going to go anyway? Right? I mean, I realize Ryan Fitzmagic is off to a great start, but this is his MO. He has great stretches and then he fizzles out. And their future is Tua. And you know, the sooner you get a quarterback like that in the lineup, the better. I think you want to throw him in. And people think that you can. It goes back to grooming. People think, oh, let him sit on the bench and learn. But I think in most cases, you're better off putting a young quarterback in there and letting him grow with the team. You know, I realize it's been a struggle for Sam Darnold, but not everybody's going to have that tough of a situation as Sam Darnold is having right now. I think the Dolphins are a much better team. If they can grow, if Tua can grow with them, then great. I think that's what you have to do. I think because that position is so important. And if you're talking about, for example, getting rid of a Sam Darnold just 3 years after drafting him, that shows you how important it is to get that position right. So the sooner they can find out about Tua, the better. And plus, he's left-handed. So I'm sorry, Mule, but I'm a lefty. I got to root for the guy. I want him in there. You know, I don't think there are any in the NFL right now other than him. So we'll see what happens with that. Grooming work for Mahomes. Mahomes was good. I'm sorry. I'm talking about a comment, but I'm not highlighting it. Let's see if I can go find that. It's from Steelers Pittsburgh. Grooming work for Mahomes. Mahomes was going to be good if he would have started from day one. He just happened to be behind Alex Smith. But if he would have started from day one, he would have been great. He's not a great quarterback because he sat on the bench for a year. He's a great quarterback because he's a great quarterback. That's just my opinion anyway. Here's one from Ron Chess. Tony, do you think with Hilton out, we see Sean Davis on defense? I would hope so. I don't think the inactives have been announced yet, but I think you have to reinforce that the secondary with as much talent as you can. And Sean Davis has a lot of experience, so I think he would be a valuable asset for them. I realize he hasn't played a whole lot this year, but he's played in their system for 4 years prior to this year. He really hasn't missed a beat with the team. He just missed an offseason until he signed with Washington, and then Washington cut him, and now he's back. So I think you have to at least have him active. I realize Cam Sutton's going to be the slot corner, and someone mentioned Justin Lane as being able to maybe play some on the outside. Hey, if Justin Lane's ready, great. I hope he is. I mean, he's part of their future. He's a former 3rd-round pick. So let's see here. Here's one from Donald Nolan. I can highlight that. Question for Tony: what happened to Friday shows? Well, I don't think they're doing those anymore. I think they're doing them, but I think they're taping them audio only. And I think the Touchdown Under show is taped on Friday for Saturday, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but we always have content available on Fridays. It's just I don't think we have it on YouTube. We just have it on the audio platforms. So I think that's why. I know Lance was doing Friday shows, but he left a while ago. So I think the Touchdown Under show sort of took its place, but they do that audio only. They do that in Australia. They tape that in Australia, and they do it. They're like 12 hours ahead of us, so I don't think they can really do a live show. So that's why I think that's what they're doing. But I'll look into that more for you. Here's a comment from Donna Nolan. Lane played outside last week against the Browns. Nelson moved to slot for that play. Well, there you go. So hopefully that's here's a comment from my friend Terry T Money. Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. Always nice to have an heir apparent in today's quarterback economics. That's true, but that's only That's a good point, Terry. But that's only one or there's only a few examples of that. Usually, you don't get that lucky. I mean, to have an Aaron Rodgers replace a Brett Favre. I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream. I mean, you and Steve Young replacing Joe Montana. Yeah, I mean, that would be great. I mean, if they can find a guy like that before Ben leaves, I'll sign my name in blood. But it's just the chances of that happening are pretty slim. I think the minute Ben retires, they're gonna find his heir apparent, put him in there like the Dolphins are doing with Tua, and see what happens. Here's another one from Donald. Is Waitman the punter this week? I think it's going to be Jordan Berry. I think they're just waiting for him to clear the COVID protocol. I think that's what the deal is, and then I think he's going to sign. He was supposed to sign on Saturday, from what I read, and then I think he'll be in there on Sunday. That's my guess. But you never know how these things can go. Honestly, I don't really. I mean, I've seen the Steelers win the Super Bowl with Mitch Berger and Paul Ernster as their punters, and they were horrible. And in the 70s, Bobby Walden was their punter for the first couple of Super Bowls, and he wasn't that great. And then I've seen them not even make the Super Bowl with really great punters like Harry Newsom. I don't know if any of the longtime fans remember him, or Josh Miller was the greatest Steelers punter I've ever seen, and they never made a Super Bowl with him. So, I mean, obviously, punting is important, but it's not like critical in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's like Dustin Colquitt was a 15-year vet, and they signed him, and nobody batted an eye. I mean, a running back, the second he reaches the age of 25, people are ready to send him out to pasture. So, I think, if it's not Jordan Berry or Waitman, it'll be somebody else, So here is, let's see if I can find a few more. Then I will call it a day. This has been a fun show. Here's a comment from B. Williamson about Jordan Berry. He's slated to play. Yeah, I think he is. And let's see, we can take a couple more. See if I can find some new ones here. Ezra. Here's a prediction from Ezra. Although Pittsburgh 26, run and shoot 17. I don't know if you're referring to tomorrow's game, but I don't think the great thing about the Titans, and where I think the Steelers might be okay with even though they're missing Devin Bush and Mike Hilton, is they're a really straight up traditional offense. I mean, they really just, a lot of 2 tight end sets. They don't try to fool you. I mean, they know what you're getting with them. You're getting a lot of Derrick Henry. Mike Tomlin said in his press conference on Tuesday, they're going to punch you in the mouth. So, but I think the Steelers, can contain him, and they're going to be missing. I've spent so much time talking about Devin Bush and his loss, but they lost their best offensive lineman, their left tackle, Taylor Lewan. He left with a knee injury, a season-ending. He's out for the year with a season-ending knee injury. So, they're going to be scrambling to replace him. So maybe that's how Bud Dupree feasts tomorrow, or eats, as they say nowadays. Maybe he takes advantage of that whoever they have at left tackle. So they're dealing with some issues too. So I think the Steelers can score points against Tennessee. The only question is, can they slow down Derrick Henry and those tight ends and A.J. Brown, and can they get to Ryan Tannehill, who's a very efficient quarterback? He doesn't get a lot of respect, including from me. I've never been a big fan, but maybe he's about to earn some. We'll see. Here's a comment from Ron Chess. Pass rush gets to Tannehill. I hope so. Dave Shipley again. Here's another one. Opening drive TD. He's asking that question of me. Hey, hasn't happened since 2018. So I hope so. But the good thing about this team is it hasn't happened through 5 games, and yet they're averaging almost over 31 points a game. So, big picture, probably not that big a deal, but it is kind of funny that it hasn't happened since 2018. Now, obviously last year, there's a huge reason why it didn't happen because of Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges and the problems they had on offense. But through 5 games for them not to score a TD, it's kind of funny. It probably goes back to a lot of people, a lot of people who criticize Randy Fichtner that maybe the beginning of the game is a little bit too scripted, and he wants to stick to those 10 or 15 scripted plays at the beginning of a game. But I mean, of course, a lot of coaches do that. And Dave put in a $2 super chat for that. That's how much he wants an opening drive TD. So for we thank you for the $2, Dave. Hopefully it'll get off to a good start. And here's a comment from Ezra. We will phase Henry out with a double-digit lead by the 3rd quarter. Well, that's definitely what you have to do against an offense like that. You want to put them on their heels and put them behind it and force them to start passing more. I think the more Tannehill passes, even though he's having a great year, I think the more he can be exposed. So we'll see. All right. With that, last question or comment. That's going to be it for today's show. And I thank you all for joining me and enjoy Sunday's game. And please check out, again, our whole family of podcasts, both on YouTube and on any audio platform you desire to listen to it on. You'll find it. So thanks again for joining me, and go Steelers. Have a great weekend, everybody.